The moment my sister opened her mouth, my entire life changed. I was standing in the corner of the royal ballroom, invisible, forgettable, wearing a dress that used to be hers 3 seasons ago, and she walked right up to the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms, pointed at me, and laughed. "Nobody wants her," she said. Not even the servants looked twice at her. 300 guests heard her. 300 people turned to stare at me, and the Alpha King, the man they called the Beast of the North, the one who hadn't taken a mate in 10 years, the one whose last 3 fiancés fled rather than marry him. He set down his glass. He walked past my sister like she didn't exist. He crossed the entire ballroom, every step echoing against the marble floor, and he stopped, right in front of me. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question. But here's what my sister didn't know, what nobody knew. What I'd been hiding for 5 years, I was his mate, and I'd been running from him since the night I turned 18. My name is Alara Vance, and I need you to understand something before I tell you the story. I didn't want to be found. 5 years ago, on the night of my 18th birthday, I felt the bond snap into place like a chain around my heart. I was serving drinks at a border tavern, saving every coin to escape my father's pack, when he walked in. Calen Blackwood, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. He was there on war business, treaty negotiations, something about rogue wolves crossing into his land. I smelled him before I saw him. Pine. Smoke. Something darker underneath, like a storm waiting to break. My wolf went absolutely insane. "Mate, mate, mate." I dropped the tray I was holding, glass shattered everywhere. Every head in that tavern turned toward me, including his. Our eyes met, and I watched recognition flood his face. I watched his pupils dilate. I watched his hands grip the edge of the bar so hard the wood cracked. He knew. He felt it too. And in that moment, I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. I ran out the back door. I ran through the forest. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, because I knew who he was. Everyone knew who Calen Blackwood was, the Beast of the North, the Alpha who'd killed his own father to take the throne, the one whose territory was so brutal that wolves begged to be exiled rather than face his judgment, the one whose last 3 fiancés, 2 princesses and a noble's daughter, had all fled rather than complete the mating ceremony. Nobody survived being his, and I was nothing. A servant's daughter. A pack disgrace. My own father traded me for debt when I was 16. I wasn't strong enough to survive him, so I ran. I ran, and I kept running for 5 years. I changed my name. I moved through 12 different territories. I worked kitchens and stables and anywhere they didn't ask questions. I thought I was safe. I thought he'd forgotten. I thought maybe the bond would fade if I just stayed far enough away. But here's the thing about fate. It doesn't forget, and neither did he. 3 weeks before the ball, I made a mistake. I went home, not to my father's pack. I'd rather die than go back there. But my mother was dying. She'd sent word through underground channels, the kind of messages that take months to find the right person. "Please come, I don't have long." So I went back to Silver Ridge, the pack where I grew up, the pack where my sister Corinne was now engaged to the beta's son, the pack where my father still traded girls like property. I thought I could slip in unnoticed, see my mother, say goodbye, disappear again. But my sister, Corinne, had always hated me. I was never sure why. Maybe because our mother loved me more. Maybe because I had our grandmother's eyes, the strange silver color that made people whisper about witch blood. Maybe she just needed someone to hate. Either way, she found out I was back within hours, and she came to our mother's sickbed, not to comfort her, but to deliver a message. "You're going to the lunar ball," she said. I looked up from my mother's frail hand. "What?" "The Alpha King is hosting a ball. Every unmated female in 5 territories is required to attend." She smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. "Father already registered you. If you don't go, he'll tell the King's Guard you're a deserter. You'll be dragged there in chains." My blood went cold. You can't, I can. She leaned closer. And I will. Unless. Unless what? You come to the ball. You stand in the corner like the ghost you are, and you watch while I become the Alpha Queen. She showed me the invitation, gold lettering, the royal seal. The king is finally taking a mate, she said. And it's going to be me. I've been preparing for this for years. I've trained. I've studied. I've made myself into exactly what he needs. I wanted to laugh. She had no idea who he really was, what he was capable of, no idea that she was walking into the arms of a beast. But I couldn't tell her. I couldn't tell anyone, because if she knew I was his mate, if anyone knew. Fine, I whispered. I'll go, she smiled. That cold, beautiful smile. Good girl. She left, and I sat in the darkness, holding my mother's hand, knowing I was walking straight into the one place I'd been running from, my entire adult life. My mother died 2 days before the ball. I buried her alone. No ceremony, no mourners, just me, digging in the frozen ground behind the cottage, trying to pretend my hands weren't shaking. When it was done, I sat beside her grave until the sun came up. Then I went to face my fate. The dress Corinne gave me was a humiliation by design, pale gray, washed out, 2 seasons out of fashion. The hem had been let out so many times the stitching showed. Next to her gown, deep emerald silk with gold embroidery. I would look like a servant who'd wandered into the wrong room, which was exactly her intention. Remember, she said as we climbed into the carriage, you don't speak unless spoken to. You don't dance, you don't draw attention. You stand in the corner and you watch. I nodded, silent, obedient. Inside, my wolf was pacing. She could feel him, even from miles away. The bond was humming like a live wire under my skin. He was there. He was waiting, and he would recognize me the instant I walked through those doors. The palace came into view, and I forgot how to breathe. I'd heard stories about Blackwood Castle. Everyone had, but stories couldn't capture this. It rose from the mountain like it had grown there, black stone towers reaching toward a sky full of stars, thousands of lights blazing in every window, a waterfall cascading down one side, somehow unfrozen despite the winter cold, and at the gates, wolves. Not shifted, but not quite human either. The king's guard, 7 feet tall, eyes glowing gold in the darkness. They checked every invitation with absolute precision. One of them looked at me a moment too long. My heart stopped, but he waved us through. We entered the ballroom, and the world shifted beneath my feet. 300 guests, maybe more. Wolves from every territory dressed in silks and velvets, and enough jewels to ransom a kingdom. A string quartet played something haunting and beautiful. And at the far end of the room, on a throne carved from a single piece of obsidian, he sat. Calen Blackwood. The Alpha King. 5 years hadn't changed him. If anything, he was more devastating than I remembered. Dark hair pushed back from a face that looked carved from stone. Jaw sharp enough to cut glass. A scar running from his left temple to his cheekbone, the only evidence that anything had ever dared touch him. And his eyes, black, completely black, not a hint of humanity in them. He was scanning the room, methodical, calculating, looking for someone. I pressed myself into the shadows near the wall, made myself small, made myself invisible. Please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't. Corinne grabbed my arm. Stay here, she hissed. Don't move, don't speak, don't even breathe too loud. Then she walked toward the throne, hips swaying, smile blazing. And I watched her approach the monster I'd been running from for 5 years. I couldn't hear what Corinne said to him. The music was too loud, the distance too far. But I watched her curtsy, low and perfect and practiced. I watched her gesture with her hands, telling some story designed to make her seem witty and charming. I watched the Alpha King's face. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He looked at my sister the way someone might look at a piece of furniture, noting its presence, assessing its function, already forgetting it existed. But Corinne didn't see it. She was too busy performing, too busy being the woman she thought he wanted. She didn't notice when his attention drifted, She didn't notice when his head turned, slightly, toward the shadows where I was hiding. She didn't notice when his entire body went rigid. But I noticed. I noticed because his eyes, those endless black eyes, locked onto mine, and the world stopped. The music faded. The crowd disappeared. Everything reduced to the single point of contact between us. 5 years of running, 5 years of hiding, 5 years of pretending the bond didn't exist. Gone, all of it gone, in one single look. His hands gripped the arms of his throne so hard I heard the stone crack. His jaw clenched. His wolf pushed forward, and for one terrifying second, his eyes flashed gold. Move. I needed to move. I needed to run. I needed to run. I needed to run? I needed to, Your Majesty? Corinne's voice broke the spell. The king blinked, looked at her like he'd forgotten she existed. What? I asked if you might honor me with a dance later this evening. I've trained extensively in the Northern Waltz, and no. One word. Final. Absolute. Corinne's face flickered. Confusion. Embarrassment. Then, anger. She glanced over her shoulder, saw me, saw where his attention had been, and something ugly twisted in her expression. Your Majesty, she said loudly, loud enough for the guests nearby to hear, loud enough for it to carry across the whispered gossip of the ballroom. I couldn't help but notice you looking toward the back of the room. That's my sister over there, the one in the gray dress. The Alpha King said nothing. I should warn you, nobody wants her. Not even the servants in our pack look twice at her. She's... Corinne laughed, that practiced, tinkling laugh. Well, she's not exactly mate material, if you understand my meaning. The words hit me like physical blows. Every head in that section of the ballroom turned toward me. Eyes. So many eyes, all of them staring, judging, pitying. The whispers started immediately. That's her? The one in gray? Gods, she looks half-starved. Why would the king even notice someone like that? I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I wanted to run, but I was frozen, paralyzed, trapped in the spotlight of my sister's cruelty and the Alpha King's impossible attention. And then he moved. The Alpha King stood. The entire ballroom fell silent. 300 people stopped breathing at the same time, because Kalen Blackwood, the beast of the north, the alpha who hadn't left his throne all evening, was walking. He walked past my sister like she was made of smoke. He walked through the crowd that parted before him like water before a blade. He walked with the kind of certainty that said he knew exactly where he was going, and he was coming toward me. Step, step, step. Every footfall echoed against the marble. Every eye in that room followed his progress. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. He stopped, right in front of me, close enough that I could smell him. Pine. Smoke. Smoke. That darkness underneath that made my wolf want to roll over and submit, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. He looked at me, really looked at me. And something in his expression, something raw and hungry and barely controlled, made my entire body tremble. 5 years, he said. His voice was low, rough, like he'd been swallowing gravel. 5 years. I've been looking for you. I couldn't speak. 17 territories, 400 soldiers, every tracker in my kingdom. He reached out slow, like approaching a wounded animal, and his fingers brushed my cheek. The bond exploded. It was like being struck by lightning, like drowning and breathing for the first time. Like every cell in my body suddenly remembered what it was made for. Mate. 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 I thought you were dead, he whispered. I thought I'd lost you before I ever had you. My voice cracked. I'm sorry. I was scared. I didn't know. Dance with me. It wasn't a question. His hand extended, palm up, waiting. Behind him, the entire ballroom watched. My sister's face was white with shock. The whispers had turned to stunned silence. I looked at his hand. I looked at his eyes. And for the first time in 5 years, I stopped running. Okay, I placed my hand in his. And the Alpha King, the beast of the north, the monster everyone feared, smiled. The orchestra started playing without being told. Something slow, something ancient, a song I'd never heard, but somehow knew in my bones. He pulled me onto the dance floor. His hand settled on my waist, firm but gentle, like I was something precious. He was afraid to break. My hand found his shoulder, solid muscle beneath silk. We began to move. You're trembling, he said. I'm terrified of me, of everything. His grip tightened slightly. Protective, possessive. They told you stories about me. Everyone told me stories about you. Which ones? I swallowed. That you killed your father. True. That your fiancés all fled rather than mate you. Also true. That you're a monster. He was quiet for a long moment. We turned. Spun. The lights blurred around us. Do you think I'm a monster? I looked up at him. Really looked. And I saw something I hadn't expected. Beneath the power, beneath the control, beneath the legend, pain, loneliness, a man who had been feared so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. I said slowly, I think you've done monstrous things. I have. I think you'll do more. I will. But I don't think. I took a breath. I don't think that's all you are. Something flickered in his eyes, something vulnerable, something human. You don't know me. No, but I feel you. Through the bond, I felt you for 5 years. He stopped dancing, right there, in the middle of the floor, with 300 people watching. What do you feel? I shouldn't answer. I shouldn't give him this ammunition. I shouldn't. Loneliness, I whispered. So much loneliness, and anger, and grief. And underneath all of it, hope. This tiny spark of hope that keeps you going even when everything else is dark. His hand came up, cupped my face, tilted it toward him. What's your name? Alara. Alara? He said it like a prayer. 5 years? I've been calling you mine in my head for 5 years, and I never knew your name. I'm sorry I ran. Don't be. I understand fear. I've inspired enough of it. I'm not afraid anymore. Liar. But he smiled when he said it. You're terrified. Your heart is beating so fast I can hear it. Terrified and not afraid aren't the same thing. He laughed, low and rough and surprised, like he'd forgotten he could make that sound. No, he said. I suppose they're not. The music swelled. We started moving again, closer now, his forehead almost touching mine. I'm going to ask you something, he said. And I need you to answer honestly. Okay. Will you stay? Not forever, not yet, but tonight, tomorrow. Long enough for me to prove that the stories aren't everything. Long enough for you to decide if this is something you want. I thought about my mother's grave in the frozen ground. I thought about my sister's face, the rage barely hidden beneath the shock. I thought about 5 years of running, 5 years of hiding, 5 years of being nobody. Yes, I said, I'll stay. He'll stay. His arms tightened around me, and for one perfect moment, everything was exactly right. Then the window exploded. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Wolves poured through the shattered window. 12 of them, shifted, massive, eyes glowing red, rogues. The ballroom erupted into chaos, screaming, running, tables overturning, the beautiful guests trampling each other to reach the exits. Kalen shoved me behind him. Stay close. He shifted in the space between one heartbeat and the next. His wolf was enormous, black as midnight, bigger than any I'd ever seen. He launched himself at the first rogue. The sound of impact was like thunder. I pressed myself against a pillar, watched him fight, watched him tear through the robes like they were made of paper. He was magnificent, terrible and beautiful and absolutely lethal. But there were too many, and more coming through the broken windows. A rogue slipped past him, came straight for me. I didn't think. My wolf surged forward. I shifted for the first time in years. Silver fur, smaller than most, but fast. I met the rogue head-on, teeth and claws and primal instinct. I was outmatched, outweighed, but I was fighting for my life. I managed to get my jaws around its throat. Bit down, felt bone crack, the rogue collapsed. I stood over its body, panting, bleeding from a dozen wounds. and realized the ballroom had gone completely silent. I looked up. Every wolf, every guest, every guard was staring at me, including Kaylin. He'd shifted back. Human again, blood on his hands, bodies around him. But his eyes were fixed on me with an expression I couldn't read. "Your wolf," he said, "is silver." I shifted back, felt the wounds more acutely in human form. "Yes. Do you know what that means?" I shook my head. He crossed to me, gently, like approaching something sacred. The last silver wolf was my grandmother. She was the most powerful seer in 300 years. They called her the Moon's daughter. I don't have any powers. I'm nothing special. You are everything," he said. "You've always been everything. I just didn't know how much." He pulled me into his arms, held me against his chest. I could feel his heart pounding. "The attack," I said. "The rogues. This wasn't random, was it?" "No, they were after me." "Yes. Why?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because someone doesn't want the king to have a mate. Someone wants me alone, vulnerable, killable." "Who?" His jaw tightened. "My brother? You have a brother?" "Had. He was exiled 10 years ago, after he tried to kill me the first time. We were in his private chambers now. A healer had tended my wounds. Guards were posted at every entrance. Kaylin stood by the window, staring out at the destruction below. His name is Damon. We're twins, actually. He was born 3 minutes before me. Should have been the heir. What happened? Our father happened. He saw something in me that he didn't see in Damon. Some potential, some darkness he could use." His voice was bitter. "He trained me to be a weapon, and he discarded Damon like he was nothing. So Damon wants revenge. Damon wants the throne. He's been building an army in the Shadowlands, recruiting rogues, planning, waiting. For what? For me to take a mate." He turned to face me. "A mated alpha is stronger in some ways, but also more vulnerable, because now there's someone who can be used against him." The truth settled over me like a weight. He'll come for me. Yes, he'll use me to get to you. He'll try. I stood up, crossed to him, put my hands on his chest. "Then we don't give him the chance." "What do you mean? Complete the bond, tonight. Make me your mate in every way. Make me strong enough to fight beside you instead of hiding behind you." His eyes flared. "You don't know what you're asking." "I'm asking to stop running. I'm asking to stop being the girl nobody wants. I'm asking to be yours. Completely." "Alara, 5 years," I said. 5 years I've been half alive, feeling you through the bond. Missing you without ever knowing you. I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to be careful anymore. I want this, you, whatever comes next." He grabbed me, pulled me against him, kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. When he pulled back, his eyes were pure gold. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He smiled. That rare, devastating smile. "Then let's give my brother something to really worry about." That night, I went from being nobody to being everything. The girl who hid in corners became the woman who stood beside a king. The servant's daughter became the Alpha Queen. And my sister, I saw her the next morning, as I walked through the palace in silk robes with the king's mark on my neck. She couldn't speak, could barely look at me. I stopped in front of her. "You were right about one thing," I said. "Nobody wanted me." I smiled. "Nobody except him." I walked away, and I never looked back. Some people spend their whole lives running from their fate. I spent 5 years running from mine. But here's what I learned. Fate doesn't chase you. It waits, and when you're finally ready to stop running, it crosses the room and takes your hand. You know, Alara spent years feeling invisible, standing in corners, wearing hand-me-downs, believing the lie that nobody would ever want her. And maybe, just maybe, you know what that feels like. Maybe that's why you're still here. Maybe it's late where you are right now. The world's quiet, but you needed this, so tell me you're here. Drop your time, where in the world you are listening from, because unlike Alara's sister, I see you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, Do it now, so you won't miss tomorrow's story. This is Destined Heart. You belong here.